The boardroom went silent when I slid the folder across the table. Inside were 37 documented violations, each one carrying a minimum fine of $50,000. Warren's face drained of color as he opened it. His hand actually shook when he reached the page with his signature on it. This can't be legal," he whispered. I leaned back in my chair. "It's your signature, Warren. Your authorization. Your liability." 23 months earlier, he'd smiled at me across his mahogany desk and said my position was being eliminated. 2 years before my pension vested. 2 years before 23 years of loyalty would have meant something. He thought I'd just disappear. But that wasn't where it started. My name is Caleb Hayes, and for 21 years, I was the kind of employee companies pretend to value. I started at Dalton Industrial Solutions right out of college, back when the company had 40 employees and operated out of a converted warehouse on the east side. I watched it grow into a multi-state operation with over 800 people. I wasn't just a quality assurance manager, I built the QA department. Every protocol, every safety standard, every compliance document that kept Dalton from getting sued or shut down, I wrote it. When inspectors showed up, they asked for me by name. When clients had concerns, Warren called me personally. My daughter Heather was 10 when I started. By the time this story begins, she was finishing her master's degree in environmental engineering. My wife Donna taught 3rd grade. We lived in a modest 3-bedroom house with a mortgage that would have been paid off the same year my pension vested. That pension wasn't just a number. It was 25 years of deferred compensation. It was security. It was the promise that showing up every day, doing the right thing, putting the company first, it meant something. I should have seen it coming. Looking back, the signs were there. New management consultants showing up every quarter. Private meetings I wasn't invited to anymore. Warren's assistant avoiding eye contact when I passed her desk. But I trusted the system. I trusted loyalty meant something. I was wrong. It was a Tuesday morning in March. Warren's assistant called my extension at 9:47 a.m. "Warren would like to see you in his office." No greeting, no small talk, just the message. I walked down the hall I'd walked 1,000 times before. The same framed certificates on the walls, half of them signed by me. The same smell of industrial coffee from the break room. Everything normal. Everything fine. Warren sat behind his desk with a manila folder in front of him. No handshake, no smile. "Caleb, we're restructuring the QA department. Your position is being eliminated." The words hit like cold water. Eliminated? "We're consolidating operations, bringing in an outside firm to handle compliance. It's more cost-effective." 21 years, over 7,000 days, and it was being summarized as cost-effective. "I'm 2 years from vesting my pension, Warren." He didn't blink. "I'm aware. We'll be offering a severance package. 2 weeks for every year of service. That's quite generous." Generous. 42 weeks of pay in exchange for abandoning a pension I'd earned over 2 decades? A pension worth over $400,000 if I made it to year 23? "This is about the pension, isn't it, Warren?" His jaw tightened. "This is about efficiency. We have younger employees who can handle the workload for less overhead." Overhead. That's what I'd become. Not a person, not someone who missed birthdays and anniversaries to fix compliance emergencies, just overhead. "What if I fight this?" He smiled. Not warmth, just teeth. "Employment at will state, Caleb. You know that. Sign the severance agreement by Friday or we'll contest your unemployment claim." I left his office in a fog, walked past colleagues who suddenly found their computer screens fascinating, past the QA lab I'd designed, past the testing equipment I'd fought budget meetings to acquire. In the parking lot, I sat in my truck with the windows up and screamed until my throat burned. That was the night I stopped trusting and started planning. The severance agreement arrived by courier the next morning. 28 pages of legal language that all boiled down to take this money and disappear. Never speak about this company again. Waive every right you have. I read it 7 times. Then I called my college roommate, Preston, who'd become a labor attorney. "Don't sign anything yet," he said immediately. "I need to see the full employment contract and pension documents." I spent that weekend in my garage surrounded by boxes I'd brought home over the years. Old files, training manuals, internal memos, things I'd kept because I believed in documentation. And that's when I found it. A 3-ring binder from 2019. Internal audit reports I'd filed with Warren's signature acknowledging receipt. Violations I'd flagged, safety concerns, compliance gaps. Every single one marked action required with target dates that had come and gone. Warren had ignored them. Not just delayed, ignored. And then he'd authorized operations to continue anyway, signing off on monthly reports that claimed full compliance. I photographed every page, uploaded them to 3 different cloud services, and then I started cross-referencing. Dalton Industrial worked with 7 federal agencies, EPA, OSHA, DOT. Each one had mandatory reporting requirements. Each one had public databases where you could check a company's compliance history. I spent 3 weeks mapping every discrepancy, every gap between what Dalton reported and what actually existed. Every signature Warren had forged or backdated on compliance documents. Preston called it a prosecutable pattern of negligence. I called it ammunition.
But I needed more than documentation. I needed leverage, something that would make fighting back more expensive than just paying me what I'd earned. That's when I remembered the Hawthorne contract. Hawthorne Manufacturing was Dalton's largest client, 32% of annual revenue. They'd hired us because of our industry-leading compliance standards. Standards I'd built. Standards Warren was now falsifying. If Hawthorne knew Dalton was operating with systematic violations, they'd pull the contract. Not might, would. Their insurance required certified compliance from all vendors. I had copies of every compliance certificate Dalton had sent them over the past 2 years, and I had the internal audit reports showing half of those certificates were lies. But exposing that immediately would have been too blunt, too easy for Warren to spin as a disgruntled employee making false claims. I needed Hawthorne to discover the truth themselves. I created an anonymous email account, not connected to my name, my address, my anything. Then I sent Hawthorne's chief compliance officer a simple message. You might want to request an independent audit of Dalton Industrial Solutions. Specifically, review their EPA emissions certifications from Q2 2023. Compare reported levels to actual monitoring data. The discrepancy is significant. No threats, no demands, just a breadcrumb. 3 days later, Hawthorne requested a surprise compliance audit. Warren's assistant accidentally copied me on the internal email chain. She forgot to remove me from the distribution list. The panic was immediate. Warren called an emergency meeting with department heads, ordered a comprehensive review of all documentation, told everyone to ensure files were updated and accurate, which in compliance language meant falsify everything before the auditors arrive. And I had emails proving he'd ordered it. But Warren was smarter than I'd given him credit for. He brought in an outside consulting firm, one specializing in audit preparation. Within a week, they'd created a complete set of backdated documents that technically passed inspection. Not perfect, but good enough to satisfy a standard review. The Hawthorne audit happened. Dalton passed. I'd failed. Or so I thought, because that consulting firm, they kept copies of everything. That's standard practice. It protects them if a client later gets caught falsifying records. The consultant can say, "We advised them, here's proof, not our fault." And one of those consultants was a guy named Travis Quinn. Someone I'd worked with 6 years earlier on a joint project. Someone who remembered me. Someone who called me when he realized what Dalton had hired them to do. "Caleb, I can't give you the files directly. That's illegal. But if someone with proper standing requested them through discovery, they'd have to hand them over. Proper standing. Legal discovery. That meant I needed to file an actual lawsuit. I called Preston. If I sue for wrongful termination and pension interference, can we subpoena those consulting records? Absolutely. And if they show systematic fraud, we can bring in regulatory agencies. This stops being an employment case and becomes a criminal referral. The lawsuit was filed on a Friday afternoon. Dalton received the summons Monday morning. Warren called me directly. First time he'd spoken to me since the termination. "What do you think you're doing?" "I'm getting what I earned. You signed the severance agreement." "Actually, I didn't. I never returned it. Check your records." Silence. "Then you're making a mistake, Caleb. We have lawyers, good ones. You'll spend everything you have and still lose." "Maybe, but I'll make sure everyone knows why I'm fighting." He hung up. The next morning, I received a settlement offer. Full pension vesting, continuation of health insurance until I turned 65, $100,000 in emotional damages. It was everything I'd asked for in the initial demand letter. Preston called it a win, but I hadn't told him about the regulatory filings yet, because settling the lawsuit didn't stop what was already in motion. 2 weeks after filing the suit, I'd sent detailed reports to 3 federal agencies, EPA, OSHA, DOT. Each report included documented violations spanning 4 years, Warren's signatures authorizing non-compliant operations, email evidence of ordered falsification, testimony from Travis Quinn, who'd agreed to cooperate, cross-reference data showing pattern and intent. I didn't ask for money. I didn't ask for apologies. I asked for investigation. The EPA showed up first. Unannounced inspection on Wednesday morning. They spent 3 days on site, took samples, interviewed employees, seized documents. OSHA came next, found 17 safety violations in the main production facility, violations I'd flagged 2 years earlier. DOT suspended Dalton's hazmat transportation certification pending review. Within a month, Dalton Industrial Solutions was facing $2.3 million in EPA fines, mandatory facility upgrades costing $1.8 million, loss of DOT certification, and 3 major contracts that required it, a Hawthorne Manufacturing terminating their agreement after the EPA findings became public, and a shareholder lawsuit when the stock price dropped 37%. Warren called me again. "You're destroying this company. Hundreds of people work here. Good people. You're taking their jobs." "No, Warren, you did that when you chose profit over compliance. I wrote the procedures that would have kept you safe. You ignored them. This is just consequences. What do you want?" "I want you to know what it feels like to have everything you built taken away because someone decided you were overhead." I hung up. The board of directors fired Warren 6 weeks later. They settled with the EPA for $1.9 million. The company survived, but barely. New management brought me in as a consultant to rebuild the QA program at triple my old salary. Same office, same desk, but now they listened when I talked. I'm writing this from my home office. The mortgage is paid off. Heather got a job with an environmental advocacy group. Says watching me fight back taught her that systems need people willing to challenge them. Donna asks if it was worth it. The stress, the risk, the months of uncertainty. I tell her what I told Preston. Revenge doesn't fix pain. It measures it. Warren lives in a smaller house now. Works for a logistics company in a middle management position. I heard through the industry grapevine that he tells people his old company fell victim to regulatory overreach. He still doesn't get it. But I do. I learned that loyalty is only valuable when it's mutual, that documentation is power, that the rules exist for a reason, and when people with authority ignore them, they create their own trap. They thought they could cut me loose 2 years before I vested, save a few $100,000, sacrifice one person for the budget. Instead, it cost them millions, and more importantly, it cost them their credibility. I'm not proud of what I did, but I'm not ashamed either. I gave Dalton 21 years. They gave me a manila folder and a deadline. So I gave them accountability. What would you have done? Justice always finds its way. I'm Zach, and this was another true tale of revenge.